Alright, so in this video I'm going to go ahead and go over the quiz review. You'll notice there are no proofs on this quiz review, and that's because there are no proofs on your upcoming quiz. Okay. Now when I finish the video, I'm going to go ahead and put up the top here. You'll notice that I have put up the times to get to certain questions. So if you don't need to see every question, just skip ahead to the times I've got listed up top here. It should work out for you. So for this first one, I've got angle C is going to be congruent to, basically I'm looking for another angle here. So when I look at this triangle, I've got triangle RST is congruent to triangle ABC. So that means angle R congruent to angle A, angle S congruent to angle B, angle T congruent to angle C. Okay. So when I look at this first one, angle C is congruent to angle T. So C and T are going to correspond here. If I look at angle R, it corresponds to angle A in the other triangle. When I look at angle B, it corresponds to angle S in the other triangle. Okay, so remember that's why these triangle congruency statements are so important. For the next one, I've got this side AC is going to be congruent to my side RT. Now make sure that you have your segment bars above these, and make sure you have the angles marked like above. Okay. For the next one, ST corresponds to BC. So that is a segment as well. So make sure I have the segment bar above. And then finally, RS is going to correspond to AB. Okay. For the second one here, and number 3, so I've got triangle ABC. So I'm going to go ahead and draw these out. You'll notice these are a lot like your notes in 4.1. And I've got triangle DEF. So we said AB is 15, BC is 20, and AC is 25. And then FE is 3x minus 7. So I'm looking at the side links here. Now my side of EF corresponds to my side of BC. So since they correspond, they're also congruent to each other. So that means that their measures are going to be equal. So I've got 3x minus 7 equals 20. When I add the 7 over to both sides, I get 3x equals 27, and x equals 9. For the next one, I've got triangle ABC. It's going to be congruent to triangle DEF. So we said DE was 10, EF was 13, DF was 16, and AC is 4x minus 8. So my side of AC is going to be equal to my side of DF here. So I've got 4x minus 8 equals 16. So 4x is going to be 24. And x is going to be 6. If I wanted to check my work, I would plug my x back in to AC here. And I should have 4 times 6 is 24. Minus the 8 gets me to 16. So AC is 16, it should match DF because we set them equal to each other. So make sure you're checking your work on these. If I instead give you the 3 angles in a triangle, this is going to kind of lead to 4 through 6. The 3 angles in a triangle, remember, have to add up to being 180. Okay. So when I look at number 4 here, So I've got a 90-degree angle, right angle there. The three interior angles have to add up to be 180. So I've got 90 plus 2x minus 2 plus x plus 5 is going to equal 180. Combining like terms, I have 3x plus 93 equals 180, which means that 3x equals 87 when I subtract by 93. And when I divide out, I get x is going to be 29. If I wanted to check my work, which I again suggest, plug in your x here. So I would have 2 times 29, which is 58, minus 2 gets me to 56. Also, I've got 29 plus 5 gets me to 34. And if I wanted to check my work, add these three angles, this should equal 180. I could have stopped at the x because that's all they wanted. Okay. 5 is a little bit trickier, and there's multiple ways you could do this. I'm going to show the way that I think is easiest for most people to see. So if I look, I've got two angles x here. Now, if I had this angle right here, I would easily be able to go x plus whatever that number equals 180. Okay? And we're going to get to that here. Problem is, I got to find that angle. Okay? Now, I know that it is congruent to this angle. Okay? Because they are vertical angles. So to find this missing angle in here, I'll just call it A. We've got A plus 43 plus 57 equals 180. Combining like terms, A plus 100 is 180. So A is going to be 80 degrees. So that means by vertical angles, I've got 80 degrees there. So now I've got x plus 80 equals 180. So 2x is going to be 100. Divide, and I get 50. A lot of people mess these up because they think, oh, 43 and this x should match, and 57 and this top x should match. No. That's only going to occur for your alternate interior angles if this line was parallel to the opposite line. Okay. For number 6, again, I know the three interior angles of a triangle have to add up to be 180. So I've got 3x minus 17 plus x plus 40 plus 2x minus 5 is going to equal 180. So I've got 3x, x, and 2x. So that's going to be 6x minus 17 plus 40 minus 5 is going to be plus 18. So I get 6x equals 162 when I subtract by 18. So x is going to be 27. If I wanted to check my work, again, I would plug this x in to all three angles. And then once I kind of solve for those angles, they should add up to be 180. The next two are a little bit more difficult. So when I look at these, I've got two triangles here, and I'm going to kind of highlight the first one we're going to be looking at. Oops. So I've got this first triangle in purple. So when I go to solve for x here, you'll notice it's kind of in a smaller triangle by itself here in the middle, where they overlap. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first find this angle in the purple triangle. Then I'm going to work backwards and find this other angle. Okay. So find this missing purple angle here. I'm going to erase a little bit of the highlighter mark here. So I've got 90 plus 65 plus this angle has to be 180 degrees. Okay, I'm going to put like a little purple dot there. So I've got 180. I'm going to subtract out the 90, subtract out the 65, and you should be left with this little purple angle is 25 degrees. Okay. Now, kind of looking from the other direction, I've got this triangle. So I've got 50, 80. When I subtract those two from 180, you should get this angle in here is also 50 degrees. Now, when I go to look at x, I'm kind of looking at this green triangle here. So I've got x plus 50 plus 25 equals 180, because those are three interior angles. So now I've got x plus 75 equals 180, so x is 105. Okay. 8, we're going to work the same way because my x here is vertical angle to here. Okay. So when I go to work this one out, I've got 50 and 62. When I subtract those from 180, you should get 68 degrees. When I subtract the 53 and the 80 from the other triangle to find this missing piece, you should get 47 degrees. So now for my last step, I've got x plus 47 plus 68 is going to be 180 because the interior angle is in a triangle. So I've got x plus 115 is 180. So that means x is 65 degrees. Okay. So these are a little bit trickier because you had to kind of look at two triangles at one time. Okay. The back page. I'm going to go a little bit quicker here on the back page. Not as much writing out and solving stuff out. So we've got 6 pairs of triangles. We're trying to show if they're congruent. And then up top, we're kind of doing more of the same of what we did earlier. So if I look here, I've got 44, angle Y, and angle Y. They're the 3 interior angles, so they have to add up to be 180. So we've got 2y plus 44 is 180. So 2y is going to be 136. I'm going to subtract by 44. So my y is going to be 68. Okay. Now there's 2 ways to solve for x. One way is that the 68 degrees and the x here are a linear pair. So they have to add up to be 180 together. The easier way, remember that the 2 remote interior angles, this was from, I believe, 3.5. So these are my remote interior angles, have to add up to be my exterior angle. So in this case, I've got x is going to be 44 plus 68. So it is 112 degrees. Okay. For this one, you could have gotten away with not knowing that the remote interior angles add up to be the exterior angle. Okay? That's not always going to be the case, so make sure you also memorize that little tidbit. And that's also a shortcut for like number 10 here. So for number 10, I've got my remote interior angles, and they are going to add up to equal my exterior angle, which is 122. So when I subtract by 90, you should just get 32 degrees. So my remote interior angles are going to add to equal the 122. The next one here, I've got the 3 interior angles, all 3 of them. So I got y plus y plus y equals 180. So I've got 3y equals 180. So that means each y is going to be 60 degrees. 2 ways to find x. Again, it's a linear pair with the 60. Or I know my x is going to be the sum of my remote interior angles, which is 60 plus 60. Either way, you'll get the same answer. Okay. Last section here, 12 through 17. So we got to figure out if the following are congruent. If they are congruent, we're going to write the congruency statement. So what I mean by that is like triangle ABC congruent to triangle ... Okay. When I ask for the theorem, that's talking about like side, 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 angle, side, angle, side, angle, 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 side, and HL. If it's not one of those 5, then it's going to be not congruent. And that's all I got to write. So for this first one, I've got some parallel lines. So I've got BC is parallel to AD. And I'm going to have one transversal that is going to be beneficial here to me. So if I look, I've got alternate interior angles. I also have a shared side. So when I go to look at these 2 triangles, I've got angle, angle, and the side is not in between the 2 angles. Oops, we're in the wrong spot here. So remember, when you've got parallel lines, that is usually where you have alternate interior angles. Shared side, you need to also mark congruent. Some of the other items from that list we did in the notes last time. Vertical angles, which you'll notice is going to occur in 13 and 15 here. Perpendicular lines, make sure you add your right angles. And also midpoint theorem, which none of these did I mention a midpoint, so you're not going to be using that. And also angle bisector. Again, I didn't mention an angle bisector in any of these 6, so you're not going to be using that here. Okay, so when I go to finish up here, I need to write the triangle congruent statement. So I've got triangle A, B, C is going to be congruent to triangle. So I went from A to B to C on that top triangle. If you look at A in the top triangle, it didn't have any marks at that angle. So that means it's going to correspond with the angle that has no marks in the other triangle, which in this case is C. B had one green mark there, so it's going to be congruent to the D, so they correspond. And then finally, C is going to match the 2 marks with 2 marks. And I'm going to be left with A is going to match with C. So 2 marks, 2 marks, C with the A. The next one here, I mentioned earlier vertical angles. So I'm going to go ahead and add those in. Now when I look, I have side, angle in between, and side. Okay? So it's important when you look at, like, is it side to side, side, angle, that you're looking at one triangle at a time. Okay? You'll notice I didn't go side for this triangle, angle here, and then side in the other triangle. Okay? I had to stick with one triangle when I laid this out. So I've got side, angle, side, and I'm going to have triangle. We'll say E, G, F, congruent to triangle. Now my E was opposite the double congruent side here. So when I look in the other triangle, across from double was the H. G was where my vertical angles were, so they're going to be corresponding. And then I is across from the one congruent mark, and also F was as well, so they correspond. The next one here for 14, they share a side. So now I've got 3 pairs of sides. So I have side, side, side. So I have triangle. I'm going to say JKL is congruent to triangle LMJ. Now before we get to the last 3, I do want to mention also as well, because you may not have written this first triangle out as JKL, and that's fine. Okay? As long as your J is in the same spot as your L in the other triangle. Same thing, K needs to be in the same spot as M. They could be first, they could be second, as in this case, or they could be dead last. And then finally, L needs to be in the same spot as J. Okay, so you could have these written out a couple different ways. For 15, the only thing I can add are the vertical angles. There's nothing to tell me sides are congruent here. Okay, so angle was not on my approved list. So I just have to say that these are not congruent. And then we just move on. So for 16, I can mark the center here, shared. Now normally I would look and say, oh, you know what? I've got a side, and an angle. Remember, side, angle did not work, okay? But it does have a special case. And remember that special case occurs if I have a right angle. So remember, the side opposite the right angle is called the hypotenuse. And the other 2 sides that kind of form an L here are called legs. So I have a hypotenuse and a leg marked congruent. So I have HL. Okay. Now for my triangles, I've got triangle ONQ is going to be congruent to triangle O with N, my P match, and Q match as well. For 17, the last one here, so I've got parallel lines again, and one transversal that kind of matters here. So when I've got those parallel lines, again, I'm looking for my alternate interior angles. I also have a shared side in this case. Okay, so I have side, angle, side, which is on my approved list, so these 2 triangles are congruent. And then I've got triangle ABC is going to be congruent to triangle. So my A was kind of my empty angle for the top triangle. So I'm looking at C here. B was across from D, and then finally the last A matched with the angle C up top. Okay. You'll kind of notice that when I've got parallel lines, it's almost like the triangles kind of flip. So instead of having the A and C match A and C, you notice they flipped order. Okay. That kind of happened here for 14 as well. Okay. Even though 14 did not have parallel lines. So kind of a quick little review here. Remember, the only 5 options that I can use here are side, 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 angle, side, angle, angle, side, or hypotenuse, leg, or you have to say not congruent. Okay. Now, I know some of y'all kind of watched the whole video, and if you did, I wanted you to get a little reward. So, if you write at the top of your paper, let's see, we'll pick a different word. Let's say howdy. At the top of your quiz paper, when we take our quiz, I'll give you 1 point extra credit on your quiz. Okay, I know it's not a lot, but hey, a point's better than nothing.